It's been 6 years since the late president of Zimbabwe, or former president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, was elbowed out of power. He was in power for 37 years and was subsequently replaced by incumbent Emmerson Mnangagwa. His departure was followed by jubilation across the country as citizens had hoped for change. We're now joined to reflect on how far the country has come since the remnants, or rather the beginnings, Dr. Jethro Mpofu, of the coup started on the 14th of November. Because what is perhaps the recollection from your end? Where did you hear the news that there was something that was amiss?
The coup started brewing in earnest, as you are saying, on the 14th. That's when the standstill movement of military equipment and hardware and the shifting and shafting of the soldiers started. But it had been months of events that were boiling over towards the coup. And I think the real penultimate was when Robert Mugabe fired Emmerson Mnangagwa as his deputy, and Mnangagwa had to flee to South Africa for his safety and all that. So the coup had a build-up, which was unbelievable, because nobody in Zimbabwe believed that something like that could take place. Even the African continent at large did not believe that something like that could take place. So it became a real coup in that it was a surprise.
And that's just it. Because there's different opinions in terms of whether indeed this was a coup. Why are we characterizing it as a coup?
Indeed, it was a coup because it was an unconstitutional takeover of power that involved the military getting into the streets and compelling the incumbent to write a resignation letter. And we later learned that the incumbent, that was Robert Mugabe at the time, actually did not write the letter and did not sign it, but it was concocted and sent to Parliament. It's just that SADC, the AU, and the world at large, and mainly Zimbabwe, everybody was just tired of Mugabe and decided to voluntarily believe that it was not a coup when it was a coup. It was time for Mugabe to go. The world was ready for Mugabe to go, and they could accept that a figment, that unfortunate misrepresentation from the Zimbabwean military that it was not a coup. But it was, in all accounts, a coup, and a military one.
Okay. Retrospectively, when you take a look at what is happening in 2023, 6 years later, was it the man or the machine? The man being Robert Mugabe, the machine being ZANU-PF, that people were tired of in the country in particular?
I think mistakenly, the Zimbabwean population and the African region thought that removing Mugabe was going to be a solution to Zimbabwe's ever-deepening challenges, politically and economically. There was this assumption that Mugabe's long stay in power and his political evil and all the other dark events that accompanied his rule were summarized in the person of Robert Mugabe. Only after Mugabe departed and eventually passed on did Zimbabweans and the African region realize that the problem is the machine, that ZANU-PF and the political system and the political culture that it has perpetuated in that country is actually the problem, not the individual. Because as we can witness right now, Emmerson Mnangagwa has deepened the crisis, and if you interview Zimbabweans, they will tell you that they miss Robert Mugabe. The situation economically, politically, and otherwise was better with Mugabe than it is now. So that's the hard lesson that Zimbabweans and the Southern African region has come to learn.
What is it that makes Zimbabwe different from other SADC countries, right? More so when you take a look at liberation movements that would appear in 2023 to be completely on the other end of the spectrum and completely out of touch from the outside looking in with its population.
The tragedy with the Zimbabwean political and economic condition is not that it's just worse than neighboring countries, but it's because of the potential that the country has and where the country comes from. This is a country that was a breadbasket of the region. It had an impressive road infrastructure, impressive industrial and domestic infrastructure, a stable communication system, and a robust currency. And all that has gone to the wind, has evaporated. You've got potholes on the roads enough to bury a person. The infrastructure has collapsed. And actually the prediction by Ian Smith that black people were going to destroy that country has unfortunately come true. So looking at Zimbabwe against its potential and its background, then the tragedy of the country comes clearly. This is a prosperous country, a stable country that has been destabilized and brought to the condition of what can be described as a failed or a failing state altogether.
How should we understand that prophecy by Ian Smith, and is it a fair one to make, right? So when we take a look at all of the parties that are involved directly, indirectly, because how do we also understand that with the mantra of sanctions are hurting Zimbabwe for decisions that were taken that some believe were genuine at the time, and unfortunately then you had patronage and then.
Mm-hmm. It is unfortunate when a colonialist prediction and when a racist prediction comes through. It's a misfortune, really, and a tragic one. But what Smith said about Zimbabwe, where it's going to go with ZANU-PF, has come to pass. And Zimbabweans do not need to be told about it, they can see it. And neighbors of Zimbabwe, like South Africa and Zimbabwe, witness this directly as well. So the misfortune is exactly there that the devil's scriptures tend to come to pass, and it's unfortunate that the liberation movement has helped the devil's prediction to come to pass. So what challenge is in front of Zimbabweans and Southern Africans right now is how to correct the misdirection, to recover Zimbabwe from its degeneration, from its collapse, and restore it to normalcy, which normalcy will assist not only Zimbabwe, but also the neighboring countries, the region, and the African continent at large.